So, hello everyone. I think we all are aware that as we speak, there is a climate week going on in New York. There's a global future summit at the United Nations going on. And so I would like to stress how this presentation that Bondalti is bringing to you really makes the connection with what is going on right now. And for instance, when we hear Helen Clarkson during the opening speech at the Climate Week, Helen is the CEO of the Climate Group, and she mentions that it's time to act, to deliver, of course, but it's time for the people. So if we have to make a climate transition, we have to put people at the center. So we have to think about the people. And we are discussing, we have to deliver a just transition. So when we talk of closing coal plants, we have to think about what will happen to these coal plant workers. So how can we reskill, upskill workers? How can we leverage and drive equality in terms of living wage, in terms of opportunities, not only for actual people and society, but also for future generations? That's why these topics are important, because everything we do has an impact, but we have to decide whether this impact is a positive and which kind of impact do we really want, from our personal perspective, but also from the corporate and the organizations we represent perspective. And this is the journey that Bondalti has promised to our stakeholders. We are starting our climate transition. Firstly, this year we committed to Science-Based Targets Initiative, and now we are developing the roadmaps for decarbonization. We are also delivering and developing a new sustainable business with a 360 value creation perspective. We are applying the donuts economics model to review all of our business models. And finally, we are trying to drive positive impact for all our external stakeholders, but that will also bring impact inside our corporation. And that's the third topic that I'm going to present here. So firstly, it's important to review the fundamentals of strategy in terms of sustainable business, because there are a lot of concepts and a lot of approaches. And sometimes people don't understand clearly which is the main purpose of the organization. There is a corporate social responsibility, and traditionally this is the main approach used by several organizations, which is to try to deliver plans based on the E, the S, and the G, the triple bottom line approach. That's a more conventional approach. We are using the sustainable business approach, which is to incorporate all these topics from the conception of the business model. So it's like the sustainable by design concept. But we also have the model, the regenerative models, which is a more advanced model, trying to respect the planetary boundaries and to incorporate a systemic transformation that leads to a more long-term structural results. And that's why we're using the donuts economics model. And on the other hand, on the social aspects, we had philanthropy, which was the traditional approach to donations and to bring some support to external stakeholders and society. And finally, we have impact investment, which is the model that we aim for. And this is our ambition, to move from philanthropy to an impact investment. And how are we trying to achieve this? So we started by looking to the European context of investors in social responsibility, and to understand how these European impact investors implement their own impact strategy. So in terms of amount of capital, mainly the first sector that comes is financial inclusion. So to help minorities and people that can have some financial issues. Also the social services, secondly, Thirdly, agriculture. Then comes health and education, barely, so 2 major sectors. Then comes environment and housing. And more lower comes culture and leisure, energy, research, and others. But what is also interesting to notice is that when we look to how do these investors define in which to invest, only 9% of the investors show no definition of criteria. So one milestone is to have criteria. Then we went to look into which sectors should we focus on. So on one hand, we have the impact funds that are mainly focused in education, agriculture, health, and then environment. So these are the top 4 sectors that have been on the radar of impact funds. And on the other hand, from foundations and committed donations, we have also focused on education, health, but we have also social services and agriculture and culture. Considering the main trends, we are seeing that housing needs, it's increasing in terms of necessities from several communities, also health issues, and social services. And then after this step, we went analyzing to which should we bring impact, who is in need, and to whom should we deliver these kind of solutions. So mainly, the first beneficiaries that come to these investors are people that are living in poverty or at risk of. Secondly, children and young people. Thirdly, unemployed people, which is on the trend of growing up, this share of demand. Fourthly, disabled people, then women, then you have migrants, exiles, refugees, elderly, senior people, etc., etc. Then we went also to look upon the Sustainable Development Goals, and which were the main addressed SDGs along this kind of impact investments. And we see definitely that the top SDGs are the number 1, no poverty, and the number 8, so decent work, employment and decent work. And also we have number 10, reducing inequalities. And in blue, you can see the SDGs where Bondalti is focusing in terms of business model. So where we believe we have the major impact or we can drive more change into this kind of KPIs aligned with these 5 SDGs. And what about investment model? So when we look into the left side of this map, we find the philanthropic approach. So these compromised donations, they traditionally were focused into supporting projects or organizations that weren't financially sustainable. So what could happen is that some organizations could provide a donation, but the following year, probably that association wouldn't even exist because it went bankruptcy. So there is no sustainable roadmap for those kind of donations. On the right side of the map, we look into impact investment. That's a completely different approach. And on this kind of investment, we are talking about partnerships for development. So we might engage a corporation, we might engage a university, an international fund, other associations, innovation ecosystem. They are all together to find a solution, to escalate the solution, and to measure impact. It's a completely different approach. And that's what we aim for. So Bondalti was primarily on the left side, as all traditional corps, and we want this journey to build the social infrastructure to reach 2030 with a clear impact investment vision. just for reflection, of course, the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. So definitely we should be working on that. And this is where our approach started to be designed. So considering our 5 values, our corporate values, which are competence, innovation, human development, integrity, and responsible behavior, we started to embed what these values could mean in terms of designing new projects to support communities and the nature. Then we went to look not only to our direct activities, our operations, but through our entire value chain. And Bondalti is a B2B business, so we are a chemicals industry. We also have different business units concerning water treatment and green hydrogen, but our main business comes from the chemicals. So we are at the basic of the basis of these value chains. We work with the chemical industry, we work with inks and pigments, rubber industry, pharma, hygiene and cleaning, water treatment, paper industry, just to name a few of the sectors where our clients are working. These are the products we provide to each of these sectors. And more than our direct clients, we went measuring and mapping which would be the sectors that these clients are touching. So the chemical industry, it's touching and serving a lot of industry, also construction, tourism, we have transportation, we have hospitals, senior residencies, disinfection, sanitation, housing, agriculture, swimming pools, we have leisure, sports, we have forests, wood for paper, we have schools. So we have a lot of social sectors at the end of this value chain that are being impacted by our products, directly or indirectly. Then we went mapping also our material topics, which, by the way, are being reviewed under the double materiality assessment for the CSRD, as we all know, but these were the primary material topics that we had last year, and aligning them with the SDGs that we are focused on. And we see a lot of matches. So, of course, we discovered that the SDG number 8, decent work, and number 12 touch a lot of material topics, but we also work on number 6, which is to deliver drinking water and sanitation, and number 7, renewable and affordable energy, which are also on the scope of our activities. And after reviewing all these inputs and mapping all our value chain, we finally came to our Together Matters mission. The program has its own mission and vision, which is to give back to society and nature to a greater extent than we use ourselves, with the vision to contribute to a legacy of responsibility, ensuring that the next generations receive the same values. So our strategy, our Together Matters strategy, is based on 5 main pillars. First one, more education and citizenship. Under this pillar, there are a lot of projects going on. They are focusing on education from preschooling until high school. Also the inclusion of ethnic minorities, migrants and refugees in our communities. So training children and capacity building for young people, students in several ESG topics and cultural programs and so on. The second pillar, more home and energy, considering the housing problems that are not only in Portugal and Spain, where we have our activities, but across all Europe, to support housing for people living in poverty and to grant access to green and sustainable energy, for instance, sustainable mobility. And in this field, we also work with local authorities to identify specific needs and where we can provide this kind of support. Thirdly, we have the More Life pillar, and this pillar concerns the quality of life. How can we help this, all these groups of vulnerable people into improving their own quality of life? And we are talking of programs to people with disabilities, to help ensuring people with long-term illness having access to some health tools, to health assistance. Also granting access to drinking water in Africa, because we also have operations in Angola, for instance. Fourthly, we have the More Nature pillar. Under this pillar, we have several projects going on to improve biodiversity levels, mainly in one specific region in Portugal and other one in Spain, the north of Spain. We are also developing new projects for carbon capture and probably engaging in voluntary carbon markets, also to have a financial incentive and to bring other partners alongside with us. And finally, the fifth pillar, more entrepreneurship and decent work. And under this pillar, we work in several programs with academia to help academic students, some of them that have financial needs, to have a scholarship to move forward with their studies. We also are promoting new innovation awards for new projects that being developed under the academia environment to respond to a social challenge. And we also promote the support to entrepreneurship and to startups, for instance. Of course, all these pillars are aligned mainly with these SDGs. They all touch several SDGs, but we picked the main SDGs that they are touching. And these are our 2030 goals, which are very ambitious. I can tell you that it was a surprise when I arrived to the board with these ambitious targets. And the first thing they said, wow, how will you do this? But I believe we can reach that. But it's mainly focused on collaboration through the ecosystem. We wouldn't be able to do it alone. So we gather a lot of partners. And the more successful it is, one project, one pilot, it attracts other partners. So we can escalate it, definitely. So in terms of education, we aim to help more than 2,000 children and young people improving their performance at schools and academia. We want to launch at least 2 projects, to award 2 projects per year in sustainability projects in the school environment or in their neighborhood. We also want to launch local cultural shows to grant access to people that generally don't have access to cultural activities, and also to link cultural activities with science experts, with climate change experts, which is something relevant because, generally people don't use both subjects like music, theater, arts, and climate science. But generally, it's a very well-received programs within the communities and youngest people. Also, for home and energy, we aim to help more than 200 families in having access to decent housing, and also to have access to green energy and sustainable mobility. In terms of quality of life, also to help more than 60 families in Angola to have access to drinking water, which is already started last year. In terms of more nature and supporting biodiversity, we want to improve biodiversity level in 2 regions in Portugal and 2 regions in Spain, using regenerative techniques, and also to develop 6 new regenerative and circular economy projects for some of the sectors within our value chain. It can be agriculture, tourism, or construction. And finally, entrepreneurship, also to help more than 200 young students to have access to these scholarships, and promote sustainable innovation projects. Well, I'm not going through all of these projects. This is just to show you the portfolio that is already going on. So these projects started, some of them in 2024. The model we are using is to have a vision of at least 3 years engagement within each project. So it means that all these projects that are starting, they have already been signed to kick off in 2024, will roll until at least 2026. And depending on results of the pilots, they can be escalated. So for instance, we have some projects starting in Portugal that can be replicated in Spain and the other way around. In terms of investment, we started with this distribution. It was not even so, mainly it was focused on nature and biodiversity projects, but we aim to have a total even distribution until 2030, focusing in all of our 5 strategic pillars. And which is our approach, methodology to deliver this strategy. So firstly, we start with prospection. We use our professional networks, use conferences like this and events to network and to find possible partners and opportunities. We also connect with existing organizations, so to identify the needs that exist in our community. We do some research, also engaging with other partners for that. We promote competitions and awards for the best ideas. We have launched, for instance, last year one competition. We received more than 50 ideas for local community projects, and we selected some of them. So we have international events and so on, just to have access to a lot of opportunities. And then we have all these opportunities, and we have to decide where to invest. So we use an application of a multi-criteria matrix, and using that criteria, we end up with the investment program. And this is our selection criteria. So firstly, we analyze whether the proposal, the project, is aligned with one of the 5 strategic pillars. It is a go, no-go decision. If it's not aligned, we don't go for it. Secondly, we analyze the impact, the potential impact of the project. Thirdly, the scalability of the project. So if it has the robustness that can drive the scalability of that project. We also analyze the eligibility of the project through investment funds, to applications to national or European social investment funds. And finally, which partners are engaged or can be attracted using that ecosystem. We are also aligned with PACOPAR. PACOPAR is like all the industry cluster around, this is in Portugal, but can also be delivered in Spain. We have industrial cluster in Portugal that involves several companies. Bondalti is one of them. And PACOPAR is the main consortium project for helping communities. So although Bondalti has its own responsible investment and social impact program, we are aligned with this cluster. So everything that can appear as a possibility in this cluster can be used by Bondalti and the other way around. So any opportunity that arises to Bondalti, we can escalate it with the other partners within the industrial cluster. So this is the full methodology. So prospection, then selection, definition, implementation, monitoring. It's highly relevant to measure the impact assessment, and scale. Okay, I'm not going through all the steps. And finally, this is what we show internally also to our employees, our colleagues, because it is relevant to have all our organization engaged. And people actually want to get engaged in these projects. So how our people can engage in these projects, they can become impact ambassadors. They can identify these opportunities within the society and bring those ideas internally. And they can also spread the word along internally. They can engage in volunteering programs. Some of those programs involve like a marketplace to match offers or needs from the associations with volunteering or pro bono offers from our people. And so they match and they can provide that experience. So they can get engaged also in pro bono projects, which are more technical. And finally, they can present any kind of ideas that comes to their minds, or even spread the word with clients, suppliers, etc. So finally, success is not how high you have climbed, but how you make a positive difference in the world. Thank you very much.